Every morning I have a nice little routine. I wake up, I walk my dog, I work out, I take a shower, I meditate, I do a French lesson, I read a few pages of a book that I'm reading, and then I read the news. I like reading the news. I like staying informed. I like having opinions and knowing what the rest of the world is thinking. But on occasion, I will come across something that really kind of irritates me and frustrates me, and it usually always comes from the New York Times. The New York Times is probably the most influential and important newspaper in the entire world. It has been for quite some time, and it still is today. The New York Times is also a pro-corporation, neoliberal, pro-Israel rag. There's no other way of saying it. They have been for quite some time, and they will continue to be just a keeper of the status quo in the news media and the liquor of boots of the corporate overlords who oversee us. The New York Times has especially been efficient at distracting everyone from the world events, particularly the genocide in Gaza, by focusing solely on what Donald Trump is doing. Anything that is happening, big or small, within Trump's administration or his circle, the New York Times is all over it. Yesterday, a opinion writer named Brett Stevens, who I have critiqued on this YouTube channel before, wrote an article titled, "No, Israel is not committing genocide." The article went in to state that if Israel was committing genocide, why haven't there been hundreds of thousands of deaths than the 60,000 deaths that we have seen? Now, a lot of my information is going to come from a retort by a Ms. Belén Fernández. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right because I greatly enjoy her writing on Al Jazeera. But Fernández wrote a very well-written opinion column retorting this article that I will reference throughout this entire video. And I hope that you will click the link in the description where it is and read her work, and then go through her other work that she has written and read more of it, because she is a very good writer with opinions who I majority of the time agree with, but as you know, because it's me, I also find myself disagreeing with as well. Brett Stevens wrote this article stating that Israel is not committing genocide. The title of it said, "No, Israel is not committing genocide." He used an argument that has been used since October 7th began, and the genocide in Gaza began from Israelis. He used the argument that if the Israeli government's intentions and actions were genocidal, if it was so malevolent that it is committing the annihilation of Gazans, why has it been more methodical and vastly more deadly? He notes that the death toll of Palestinians is 60,000 in less than 2 years, not to mention that close to 20,000 of those have been children, and notes that if Israelis and the Israeli government were truly genocidal, the death count would be way higher and there would be more destruction. Brett Stevens completely, and on purpose, ignores the fact that the destruction is about as bad as it could be. Gaza is all but rubble, pretty much. There is no clean water in Gaza. There's been no food in Gaza brought through outside of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is just a trap to shoot Palestinians like fish in the barrel. There is severe malnourishment. At least 121 people have starved to death in the last couple of days because of the growing starvation problem that is happening in Gaza. The United Nations has not yet called it a famine. I personally do not understand why they have not called it a famine, but pretty much what's going on in Gaza now is a famine. There are very little hospitals left. There's no electricity. There's very little access to the internet. There are people dying every single day. There are IDF forces as well as private military contractors, including United States private military contractors, who along with the IDF are killing Palestinians in the hundreds every day, as well as the ongoing blockade since March that is not letting any aid or food in, which is attributing to starvation. Fernández answers Stevens' argument with a brilliance that I wish I had when I was reading it this morning. As of November 2024, Israel had killed at least 17,400 children in Gaza. And once again, if we go back to the New York Times editorial that they were pretty much forced to publish by the surgeons who volunteered in Gaza, Israeli forces are deliberately targeting children and murdering them on purpose, a lot of times shooting them in the head or the chest and killing them. Fernández also notes that the Lancet Medical Journal published at least a year ago, more than a year ago now, and it stated that the true death toll in Gaza was potentially set to exceed 186,000. Of course, now we can go ahead and estimate that we're probably over 250,000, and the death toll will be far higher by the time this is gone. Now, Fernández does not mention this, but I'm going to, but the Netanyahu government, as well as the Trump administration, have actively pushed the plan of exporting Gazans out of Gaza, as well as the current plan that is in full force and getting ready to be enacted within the next coming weeks is Israeli forces are pushing Gazans into what are being called humanitarian cities, which, with the note that Gaza has been called a concentration camp by people in the past, these humanitarian cities cannot be described as anything other than concentration camps. Deliberately placing people in areas to then further kick them out of their own homes. Another thing that Stevens said in his article is that he is not aware of any evidence of an Israeli plan to deliberately target and kill Gazans. Once again, the New York Times itself, in the same section that Stevens writes for, published an article showing that Israeli forces were deliberately shooting and killing children. Not to mention, the majority of people killed in Gaza have been civilians. Not only that, but we are looking at a forced starvation, which is another note of genocide. It should also be noted that while Stevens does use and comment on the actual definition of genocide that the United Nations gives, he does not acknowledge the fact that, in his own argument, that the definition of genocide itself contradicts him. The numbers do not matter in genocide. It is the intention to wipe out people or move them from their area through violence because of their race, ethnicity, culture, or otherwise. And the Israeli government is forcibly killing and moving Palestinians because they are Palestinians in Gaza and they want them out. It should also be noted that since the end of May, at least 1,000 Palestinians have been killed while trying to get food from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. This, of course, as I mentioned earlier, has been created as just a trap to basically shoot Palestinians as if you're shooting fish in a barrel. Fernández does a great job of explaining that this genocide does not just start on October 8th, but it doesn't even just start back in 2006 with the blockade, but it starts going back all the way to 1948 when the Zionists moved to Palestine and then started to create Israel by the mass killing, destruction of villages, and displacement of Palestinians. I think the numbers of that are 700,000 to 800,000 Palestinians were evacuated from their homes. And this is all just how this newspaper works. They wrote an article showing, they've had multiple articles showing, they had a famous actor from The Princess Bride and a famous family come on and condemn Israel for their actions in Gaza. But the New York Times can't help itself. It's pro-Israel, and it's going to promote pro-Israel values even in the face of overwhelming evidence. I didn't mention it to go against Stevens because I wanted to let Fernández's article and my own words stand for a minute, but it should be noted that the United Nations, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and several other human rights organizations have stated that what is going on in Gaza is a genocide, full stop. If you want to support Gaza, the first link in the description below, and Palestinians anywhere in this region. The first link in the description below will be a link to the United States Campaign for Palestinian Rights. It's a great organization. You can find out how to organize in your area, or you can just donate. They donate to places like World Food for Gaza and otherwise. You can also look up Jewish Voice for Peace and a few other and Gaza humanitarian foundations. Just Google it if you want more information, or you can comment on this video and I can give you some more links as well. Please also click on the article that will be linked by Belén Fernández. I really hope I'm pronouncing that name right, but I can't imagine I am. She's a great writer, and I think that you would really enjoy reading this article as well as others. And please just support an end to this genocide, because until the United States stops supporting it, it's not going to stop, and things are just getting very bleak, and they're just going to continue to get worse. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you later.